All right, I think we're good to go. Thanks everyone for joining me today at this webinar. Just gonna give it 30 more seconds to get the last people in. All right, I think we're ready. So thanks everyone. Welcome to this webinar talking about using technology and specifically customer feedback technology to close more sales. My name is Edun Stulan. I am the CEO of Questback Salespulse. We are a feedback management company who delivers feedback apps for Salesforce, specifically built to increase sales performance, sales hit rate, and also increase companies' coaching abilities by adding feedback into the customer's buying experience. The webinar will last for about 30 minutes, and I will open up for some Q&A at the last 5 minutes. So let's just kick it off. The agenda for today is that we'll first talk about what does customer experience have to do with sales. And customer experience is on everyone's lips these days, and companies are increasing their efforts in order to reduce churn and increase customer loyalty. We're going to address the importance of customer experience in the sales process and also how to use this to your competitive advantage. And then we're moving on to what technology means to the sales team and how to use it effectively. With the changing landscape today and what that means to sales organizations, and also give a glimpse into what technology can do for you in this space. And at the end, we will talk about how to use the technology that can give your customers and your customer feedback during the buying process to coach your sales team in real time. So busy webinar, and we will open up for questions. So feel free to add questions to the Q&A section, and I will address them at the end. Okay, moving on to the changing landscape of sales. And I want to highlight a study published in McKinsey Quarterly last year. They stated that they are now talking about the consumerization of the business buying process. So with that, they mean that the B2B buying process has turned more towards a B2C buying process, meaning that their behaviors become more consumer-like. They do a lot more research now on their own before even talk to one of your sales reps. That wasn't that common in the past. More influencers and decision makers are now involved in the purchasing process. Before, you could always trust that the message your prospect had about your product and services was exactly what marketing had put out on the market. Now they're more informed and more people will be consulted during the sales, and it is no longer enough to have a great relationship with one key sponsor. Customers also expect a sales rep now to be extremely knowledgeable about their business and perhaps even know a little bit more about their personal individual profile and wishes. And the information is out there, so the rep who picks up this information and uses it to their advantage will have a much stronger case. We also have the dynamics of the peer-to-peer networks and how they influence each other. And in all of this, with the real-time data gathering, it requires you to be able to rapid maneuver and use all this information to tailor your message towards the buyer. And technology is our friend in this space, and we have to utilize it to meet those changing behaviors. And sales reps have to engage with customers in a new way, to think differently, using insight to create constructive tension in the sales process. And technology today has the ability to give you this insight in real time. So what does this have to do with sales and customer experience? Well, if you look at the study done by CEB, it analyzed the drivers of customer loyalty, and they found that the most important driver of customer loyalty comes from the customer experience during the buying process or the sales experience. So the most important driver of customer loyalty comes from the customer experience during the buying process. This is super important, and the first impressions last, and this shows the importance of starting the focus on the customer experience during the beginning of the buying journey. And if you look at what's happening today, companies spend a lot of time and money on their sales processes, sales training and optimizing this, sales coaching, and also measuring activity, effectiveness, hit rate of the sales team, etc. But we see a lack of focus on the buyer's experience. How does the customer react to our activities and behavior during the sales process or the buying journey? What effect does our sales training have? If we train our sales reps on asking the right questions, or their demo ability or presentation skills. How do we know if they're improving these skills if we don't measure them and follow up? Technology today has made this easy, and in order to move forward, you have to train, measure, get feedback, and adjust and train again. This is how athletes train to become the best. Why should this be different for sales reps? Technology now gives us the ability to actually tap into our customer's mindset and use intelligence, customer feedback, and sentiments, assessing what the best next steps should be and what we need to train on. Today, we leave it too much up to the guessing game, and technology can change this. I also want to highlight one more finding in the Salesforce State of Sales from 2016. It points out some interesting changes in priorities and focus for sales teams. Customers now want sales reps who are personally consultants. 79% of business buyers say it is absolutely critical to interact with a salesperson who is a trusted advisor, not just a sales rep who adds value to their business. This report gathers insights and trends from over 3,000 global sales trailblazers, and it states that sales teams are adapting to their customers' behaviors by emphasizing the customer experience and focus on enabling personalized consultants rather than traditional products or service reps. And notice this, customer experience is now the top sales benchmark. The top sales benchmark. And companies report that the top reasons why this has not been prioritized in the past has been due to, number one, not easy to track. Number two, lack of required tools and software to track. And then you have number three, not tied to performance, not relevant to business, and not useful. The lack of this knowledge to make the tracking of this easy and making the data available to the right people at the right time has been a problem in the past. In today's technology, this is no longer true. So we've gotten rid of number one and two obstacles for prioritizing this as one of the sales team's KPIs. And we see now that customer experience is now the key in every touch point we have with our customers from the start of the journey. And sales departments are now positioned to be the testing grounds for advanced technologies of the future, such as automation and intelligence and artificial intelligence to meet customers on their turf. And leading sales teams will empower their reps with these cutting-edge capabilities to use in this age of the customer. Let's do a practical example. This is a typical a conversation between a sales manager and a sales rep. The sales manager has had a customer meeting. The sales rep has had a customer meeting. The sales manager wants to know how it went. Sales rep replies, fantastic. Everyone was really positive. They were discussing amongst themselves how to roll this out. They want a pricing implementation plan. A super optimistic answer. The sales manager goes, fantastic. Let's update the opportunity and pipeline review. Sometimes, I mean, this could be the truth. Usually the sales rep are a bit optimistic, but still it's difficult to know the truth in this sense. And you will always be a little bit optimistic in your view when you talk to your sales manager. That happens a lot of the times when I talk to sales rep, for instance. And typically 2 months later, what is the latest status on the sales case? Well, the sales rep says he never called me back. I had no idea what went wrong. So what could possibly have gone wrong in this case? Well, the sales rep says, I just did an incredible whiteboard exercise showing the customer the potential ROI, etc. They loved it. Well, if you were not able to match expectations to what the customer was after, it does not really matter. And if you don't catch that quickly after the meeting and get back into the game with the customer, make sure you address their challenges, you will have this experience over and over again. The problem is that we cannot really be sure what happens in those customer meetings from the customer point of view, especially if there is multiple people in there. Let's think about this. Let's look at this sales meeting here, where you have 5 people in the room. Difficult meeting, no doubt about it. You have one person on the left here who doesn't feel you're listening to them. Even worse, you have the key stakeholder in the middle who doesn't think you're listening, and you're not really able to get to show them, that you have valuable use cases for your industry. And to the right here, you have 2 people that just get it. They're super interested. They get all your viewpoints, and this is what will, most of the time, this is what will color the perception of your meeting. You have a good connection with 2 people, and that will take away your perception and base your next steps on what happens with those. But depending on the power balance decision process, do you think this is going the right way? What could we do differently if we knew this information straight after the meeting? Could we re-engage with the right people on their area of interest in a better way? Could we use all this information in our coaching of our sales reps? Why do so many companies base their next steps on the sales reps' own perceptions? Well, that always puzzles me. And also, why do companies base most of their sales coaching on internal perceptions and financial data? We leave it up to guessing game. But technology can now take away the guessing factor into this. Let's look at an example here. I've divided the simplified sales process into these stages: lead qualification, buyer experience, and customer experience. Most companies have a process for the lead qualification process. They have a standardized process and routines for this, certain activities and KPIs that is being measured. Then, when we qualify the lead, they move it into what we have called the buyer experience. And remember the importance of the buyer experience. This is not the sales process, but focus on the prospects and how they engage and feel when they buy from us. This is where in most companies there is a black box in this process. We simply don't know how our customers react and feel during and after our sales meetings, demo meetings, proposal meetings, etc. Doesn't matter. Any interaction with the customers, we're not really 100% sure how our message affects the people we're talking to. We have a set of activities and KPIs, but we don't measure the quality of what happens. We don't focus on the customer's viewpoint during this process. Once they become a customer, we have programs and processes for measuring the long-term customer experience. But knowing that the key driver of customer loyalty starts with the sales experience, it is time that we start focusing on this earlier. Let me use the last part of this webinar on how technology can play a difference in this space and opening the black box. Let's move into a typical buyer experience. We engage in the sales meeting. Could be, for instance, a discovery meeting with multiple people like we talked about earlier. After the meeting, the sales rep is trying to assess his next action, and he's uncertain that he picked up everything in the meeting. Using technology like our QB Salespulse app in Salesforce, the sales rep will straight out after the meeting send a short pulse survey asking for feedback on some specific areas related to his or her meeting or process. The customer gets the survey, answer those 5 to 6 questions in a minute, and the sales reps knows immediately much more about what to do next. That is information on what the customer is thinking an hour after your meeting. That extra piece of data can make you stand out from the competition. It could be that the customer wanted more use cases or wanted to know more industry-specific topics. Maybe he did not feel you understood his company. Getting that information quickly makes the follow-up call the next day much more easy, and you can move the case forward. You use the feedback, you send use cases, and you reconnect over the customer's points. It makes that follow-up call much simpler, and you have a relevant case to pin the call back on. When the case moves forward and you have another proposal meeting or demo presentation, you follow the same process. You have the meeting, send this pulse survey from the app in Salesforce, you receive feedback directly into your mobile phone or your iPad or on your Salesforce on your computer, and you get that extra valuable information from the prospect after the meeting that makes you take away the guessing, and you can act on what the customer is telling you. And eventually you move the deal forward. I know this was a super simplified process, but it doesn't matter how long the process is. By asking for the feedback and using that feedback after those key moments, those key meetings, those key presentations, will provide you that extra real-time data that you can use to stand out. Collecting this information on your sales rep sales meetings and sales process also provides key information in your weekly coaching. You no longer only coach on the financial KPIs or what you think the sales rep is good at. You get the customers to tell you where he needs coaching. There is no way of being present in every meeting. Measuring and getting feedback on the performance places you virtually in that meeting with your sales reps. You get early signs for coaching. Maybe you see opportunities where one sales rep is good at something, where another one is lacking skills, and you can pair them up together to get them to learn from each other. You can see how well prospects are able to work with customers from different industries. And you can identify at certain stages of the sales process, the sales rep needs help. What does the customer tell us on how well we are performing in our initial meetings, discovery meetings, negotiations, demos? Where does each individual rep need help? It's time to take away the guessing and ask the customer. Cubase Salespulse have an application tailored to do just that for Salesforce customers. It provides real-time insight into this buying process directly from the customer on their buying experience. If you want to know more about this, feel free to contact us after the webinar and we can show you a lot more. Remember, the key driver of customer loyalty comes from the buyer experience, and it's time we start assessing this early in the journey. That concludes on the content of the webinar, and I hope it has been insightful. And let us see if we have any questions from the audience in here. So I have one question from Paul Richards in New York. Will people actually respond to this and give feedback after the sales meetings? Well, that's the question I get most of the time. And we have about 40 clients running this app now. And the response rates we see are actually as high as 49%. And that's very good. Usually, generally, customer experience surveys get about 20%. So this shows that people will give you feedback if you do it event-based and in the right way straight after the meeting. So it's very important that this is not something you send out on a general purpose. It has to be event-based. It has to be made a little bit personal, that you want, that I'm asking for feedback from you after a face-to-face meeting or a call to make sure that I am valuable to you in the future. Let's see, we have another one from Aaron here. Do sales rep do this themselves, or is it automated? You can do both. I mean, the technology today in our Salespulse app, you can set up automated processes. So whenever a call is finished or whenever a meeting is finished, the invitations to feedback are sent straight away. In that way, you make sure that every encounter, every engagement with the customer is evaluated, and you get that extra important feedback. We also have clients running more enterprise sales processes where they don't want to ask all of their clients for feedback after every meeting. They use it in a little bit more when they have these more demo meetings purposes, then they ask for the specific feedback. And then they have a manual button so you can request feedback by just pushing one button. Super easy. Let's see, any more questions for today? Yeah, we have one good question here. How do you know what kind of questions to ask the client? Oh, that's a good question. And we work with, of the 40 clients we have a set of questions that you can use as best practices. So our app comes with 4 different sales methodologies, and it comes with recommended questions for those methodologies. So if you're running a challenge sales methodology or a spin process or customer-centric sales methodology, we have suggestions for best practice questions on what to follow up. But it's usually, we come with the best practice, and then usually the customer tailors it a little bit into how they run their sales. Every sales process from a company's side point of view is a little bit different, and what you're selling is, of course, important. So we tailor the questions into what is the most important basis to cover during, for instance, during the initial discovery phase. If you do a demo meeting in your company, what are the most important steps for you to make sure that the client gets after that meeting? That's what you need to evaluate and measure. Did I touch all the bases with the clients? Did he get everything he wanted? And if it gives you an answer that no, there is some shortcomings, there is some missing points, you get back to him immediately. And then you use that knowledge to next time, you know what to train on, you know what to get a little bit better on. Thanks. That was all the questions for now. Feel free to send me questions afterwards if you have any. I will also share the webinar as a recording, and it's possible to get the slides if you drop me an email. I can share the slides as well. And thanks for joining me today, and have a great afternoon.